A little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself with your name and where you were born and who your parents were.
Hi, my name is Daniel Strawser. I was born August 7th, 1943 in Robisonia, Pennsylvania. My parents were Margaret Weidman and Guy W. Strawser.
We'd like you to tell us a little bit how you got started in wood carving, since you're very well known for that art right now.
I got started back in 1968, 69. I was influenced by the local and Pennsylvania wood carvers who did carving with pocket knives, Schimel mounts, and then I took this course with Lester Bridinger, who influenced me quite a bit in keeping me influenced in wood carving with the pocket knife.
What course did you take with Lester Bridinger and where?
I took a local history course with Lester at the Connerweiser High School, evening course after I was out of high school. And he touched upon the wood carvers of Pennsylvania, Simmons, Mounts, and Schimel. And we got to be good friends with helping each other with producing wood carvings with a pocket knife and him making redware pottery.
Did Lester also carve?
Lester did some carvings. Sometimes we'd get together on a Sunday afternoon and carve together.
What type of carving do you do?
We call it chip carving or pocket knife carving. What I do is leave the chip from the knife blade cut on the carving.
What does a chip mean? What does that mean?
I mean, you're cutting away anything that doesn't look like what you want to make.
Okay. Have you always been a wood carver, or did you have some other profession?
Actually, my full-time vocation was working for a shirt company in the pattern department, where I worked there for over 30 years. But in the evenings is when I do my wood carving. I sometimes stay up till midnight to carve. I like carving. I like to make specialty carvings.
What gives you inspiration for your carvings? Like, how do you decide what you're going to carve?
That's an interesting question, because sometimes I'm sitting carving one item and all of a sudden I think, gee, it'd be neat to do something else like this or that. Or I'll see, I used to go to a lot of antique shops and historical sites where they had wood carvings, and that would inspire me to make some.
So how many years have you been carving now? Since 1969?
Yes, I started in 68, but I didn't really do anything till 69.
So you carved part-time while you worked full-time at the shirt company, right?
That's correct.
Dan, when you want to do a carving, what's the process to get started carving it?
Well, of course you have to know what you're going to carve. And I'm anxious to make another version of a big crane. So I had a pattern that I made from before time, similar to this. They're not exactly the same, but no two are alike in this game. And then I put it on a piece of wood where I want it and trace a pencil around it and cut it out on a bandsaw. And this is the body part that I started. Now you say, well, the neck isn't on it. Well, that's because the neck is thinner. So I cut it out separately, and that'll get attached with a double-threaded screw to hold it in place, and then it'll go on a base. The screws from underneath to hold it in the base. That'll be big enough so it supports it. This is the finished product. You see there's a fish in its mouth. this is gonna have a fish in its mouth. I drew a tail, so I guess I'm gonna have a tail of a fish in it. The wings I made differently on this one too. This is all in one piece, where this one's gonna be separate. It gives it a more three-dimensional effect. It's gonna get attached to the sides, one on each side. These are some other pieces that I cut out of wood and started carving with a pocket knife. This is all out of one piece of wood. They're going to be two parrots. It's fashioned after an old Schimmel carving. And this is going to be a cat.
Now we get down to the nitty gritty. Tell us a little bit about your equipment, and then we'll watch you carve.
Here's my equipment. Pocket knife. And I have already started this, the head and neck part of the, and this is what I've gotten so far down on the, all you do is, as one guy told me, you just cut away anything that doesn't look what you're carving.
So whatever doesn't look like a crane, you cut off.
That's right. An important thing is to cut away from yourself. Although I do cut to myself, but very sparingly. And not a lot of pressure when you do that. The other thing is to have a sharp pocket knife, and I use these stones, which I probably have 25, 35 years.
Probably more like 50 years, because I don't ever remember you buying one, and we've been married 35.
You just each person has his own angle for getting this blade sharp so it cuts for him. And of course you have the problem of wood. I started out using basswood, actually ponderosa pine, then switched to bass. But when we moved up to Maine, we had trouble getting bass that was of any good caliber, so I switched to local pine, and it's just as good as the bass.
Okay, show us some more of your carving technique.
I carve this way most of the time.
And why do you wear those thumb protectors?
Because I used to get nicks in my thumbs, my fingers.
You used to wear a carving glove, but you don't anymore.
It doesn't give you the feeling, because there's a lot of feeling. You don't cut off a lot at one time. Not that I don't want to cut off more, it's just that the way you're working on it. You just keep going like that. Then
Remember last time Dan was carving the big crane? He's going to show you how he's putting it together.
This is the crane I had before. But since that time, I've assembled a neck onto it with a double screw. And then cross-hatched it. Now I have the wings that I have made. They will get put on. I have them marked where they're going. They're going to get glued and nailed on there, and then filled up with wood putty around them. After that, I made a base up separately. You always have to worry about the legs breaking, so the legs are part of the body, but from here it'll fit onto this, like so. And there'll be screws going in from underneath, so this will be attached together. Then this is ready to go on the second base, which is a platform. That'll fit eventually like that. And and this will get screwed into and glued into the base. And of course, don't forget the fish. What happened to my fishy?
Here's the crane that Dan did, that we've been showing you. And now it's ready to gesso. I gessoed the base and part of his feet earlier so it would dry, so it has something to hang on to. And we just used gesso from Utrecht. It seals the wood, otherwise the paint would seep into the wood and it wouldn't retain some nice colors. So all I do is I put a pretty thick coat on. Dan's applied the wings and he wood puttied them and sanded the joints. So when you have a cross-hatched carving like this, it takes a little extra time because you have to get in all the nooks and crannies. But we just give it one coat of gesso. Takes a while to dry. Has to be thoroughly dry or the paint all runs and the white from the gesso mixes in with the paint. So we'll show you this when it's finished. Now you have the crane. He's totally gessoed. He's going to take a while to dry, maybe about 3 or 4 hours because it's in the basement and it's not super dry down here. And after the gesso dries, we will paint this big guy. After the gesso dried on the crane, I painted it in a very folksy style with acrylic paints. And once the acrylic paint's dried, I raw brushed some raw umber acrylic paint to give it some definition. And then after that, Dan antiqued it with a raw umber acrylic paint wash.
I hope you enjoyed our talk on wood carvings. I hope you enjoyed the crane.
Hello everybody, I'm James Hanley. I'm 11 and I'm their grandson. I did all the videoing for this video and I hope that you enjoyed it.